I've certainly had a number of preamplifiers in my hi-fi system for over a long period of time. There was a period of time where I was pretty convinced that a passive device between a signal source and a power amplifier was the way to go, because intellectually there's no electronics in there. It has to be better than having active stages and all that stuff as a regular preamplifier. Well, what is a preamplifier? It is the interface between signal sources and a power amplifier that drives speakers. And I had an experience at some point along the line, maybe 20 years ago, where I was very convinced about the passive attenuator type of a control for volume. That's basically what that thing would do. You'd be able to switch between signal sources, yes, and you would control volume, but there was no active circuitry in this device. Preamplifiers in general, though, usually are active devices that have gain and amplification stages within. They still have the function, the basic function of selecting a signal source to be listened to and controlling the volume. And in the earlier days before we had CD players, a preamplifier had a phono section, a phono amplification and equalization stage in it to deal with the output of a phono pickup. And then that brought the weak phono signal up to what we might call a line level signal of maybe a half a volt or so. And then you would come out of that into the signal selection stage where you selected the phono or not. If the or not would be a high level source like an FM tuner, for instance. Go into a volume and balance control, and then to another stage of amplification called a line stage. And traditionally at this time in the history of all these things, that the line stage had a gain of about 20 dB or 10 times. And as time moved on and we got the CD coming on to the situation, the output level of a CD player was something like a 2-volt standard. And that was quite a bit more than what you got from FM tuners and the output of phono stages. And therefore, the need for the 20 dB of gain was reduced to maybe 10 or 12 dB. Anyway, at one point, going back when I was using and had the idea of the passive attenuators, Mike Sanders of Quicksilver came to visit one time with one of his line stages, and we were listening to my system with the passive preamp, and then we put his active tube preamplifier in there, and I was immediately, I said, holy mackerel, the bass was more solid, and it just seemed to open up and be more musical. So that event, completely destroyed my desire to have passive attenuators. From that point on, you needed a preamp, because not only did it have more functionality in general, and it ended up by making the overall sound more musical, even though it was adding active devices in the signal chain. It just simply was more satisfactory. So from that point on, I've had mostly tube preamplifiers. I had a Lecter Zoe, an Italian preamplifier that was a very, very nice one. It had a single tube, a simple circuit. And I had that for a number of years, and I finally, more recently, I bought an Aesthetics Calypso, which is another tube preamplifier, and an exceedingly good one, I might add. So, and then that led up to the present PS Audio one that I designed that I've been listening to for a good, close to a year.
What about going from a modern thing like a DAC straight into a power amp versus going through the BHK Signature preamp?
Well, that's a very good point, and it actually is a very surprisingly a similar one. It's a similar situation actually to the passive attenuator kind of a volume control thing, or an active one. It's the same. It's really kind of the same thing. So here we have a DAC that's got a digital volume control of various qualities, and they can be extremely good. The one in the direct stream DAC is quite good. You listen to that, and then again, intellectually you say, why do I need a preamplifier? Because I can now control the volume. And furthermore, if you have a direct stream DAC, you've got a digital preamp in effect that you can have other inputs go into it. And all that sounds great. That's now become your system controller. Well, it turns out that when you do run that volume control all the way up to 100% and then interject something like a BHK tube preamplifier, all of a sudden the music becomes much more compelling and real. And if I recall, Paul, I think you had that same shocking experience yourself when you were doing just that in your big system at PS Audio.
It's true, but why? You're
Well,
adding another element.
I know. I don't know why, to be perfectly honest. I just know that it seems to be perceptually true. So there's something to be learned as to the why. I don't know it. I wish I did. But it all comes down to the more general question of why do things sound the way they do? For why do the amplifiers, or why does whatever sound the way it does? And that's something that we don't have definitive answers for in most cases. But the important thing is that it does give you more musical reality to have that preamplifier in the chain. And I certainly wouldn't want to do without it myself at this point. Although I've listened to the direct stream directly, and it just sounds very good that way. Not quite as convincing. Yeah, it's that's what I have to say about that.